What's up, everyone? It is time for my first book of the month video, and this is really just an excuse to spill my guts about a book that blew my mind. It is If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Naga, and this is going to be hard to talk about because it's just a very complex book. Okay, wait. Disclaimer. This is not a video where I'm gonna be like super abbreviated and making things for people with short attention spans who just want quick recommendations and not a lot of depth. This is me spilling my guts about a book that I am madly in love with and talking about all aspects of it. So if you like getting like a full spiel on books and really hearing people's thoughts on things, great, welcome. If you are looking for like 100 books to read this summer, this is gonna be way too much of a deep dive, and I'm just giving you a heads up now. I'm just telling you now. What is it? This is a dark romance literary fiction book. Definitely check the trigger warnings on this bad boy, because there's a lot of unpleasant stuff in here. Always check the trigger warnings, but this one especially. Before I get too carried away, I should just say what the book's about. We follow an American girl and the boy from Shobrahit, and they don't disclose their names. We never find their names, which is perfect in my mind for this book. But this American girl, who is Egyptian American but has never visited Egypt, just moved to Cairo, and the boy from Shobrahit is just a boy that she meets through mutual friends, and he's just nice to her. And they end up having a romance that very quickly takes a turn. Things get very dark, things get very twisty and toxic, and it just keeps spiraling more and more and more and more until the end of the book. It's wild because it is all very... it's not like fantastical over the top dark stuff. Like, it is all very realistic stuff that's happening, which makes it scarier for me, in my opinion. This is dark. It's about sexism, classism, it is about abuse, it is about addiction, it is about toxicity, it is about many, many deep, dark, heavy topics. It is so interesting. There are so many difficult, ugly subjects that Noor just attacks head on. Another thing I want to say is I cannot give you details without spoiling anything, but the third part of this book, everything changes. Everything changes. You thought you knew what was happening? You don't. I want to tell you so bad. I'm not going to do it to you. Just read it. Please just read it. I need to talk about this book for a million hours yesterday. Gabby, if you're watching, please read this book. Unfortunately, there are some friends who I think would love this book overall, but due to some of the abuse that's in here, it's not a good book for everybody. I don't like literary fiction a lot so far. What I have tried, I found to be just trying way too hard, and it didn't actually work, and it just was like reading a tongue twister. I wasn't impressed by the prose. I was completely turned off by them, and I found them distracting. However, this book has single-handedly convinced me to keep trying books from the genre because I love every single thing about this book. There's nothing that I don't love about this book. Not a single thing. I feel like I should address the formatting because the formatting is probably gonna piss some people off. I enjoyed it a lot. There are no paragraphs, okay? There are no paragraphs. That is a chapter. It's dual point of view. You are in the head of a boy and a girl, a man and a woman, and each train of thought from said characters is one chunk, aka one chapter. There are also these riddles above each chapter. This one, I highlighted a lot in this book. It says, question, if you understand why a hound is snapping at you, have you already pardoned him the meat from your leg? And it's so relevant to what comes right after. It took me a long time to read this book because there was just a lot of reading very intense passages and then just, am I okay? I think this is a book that people will either love or hate, partly because of the structure, partly because it's literary fiction, partly because there are very sensitive topics. This is built on sensitive topics. This book is nothing but sensitive topics being just like ripped open and exposed in a brutally honest way. and I think it is absolutely masterful. It was actually very interesting. I read one review that was written by an Egyptian woman, and she was very frustrated with this book because she was saying Noor did not represent Egypt well. Why is that how she wanted to represent such a beautiful country that has so many things to offer? And I found that interesting because not once when I was reading the book did I think like, oh yeah, Egypt, this is so Egyptian, horror and violent. No, like this is a very narrow view. This storyline is a very narrow view. It's pretty much in one neighborhood where these two people coexist, where they both hang out. But it's just interesting. As soon as you get onto topics like these, it just hits everybody so hard in such different ways. I definitely think I'll be reading a lot of reviews and seeking out videos where people talk about this book. I didn't beforehand. I didn't know what I was getting myself onto at all. This was advertised to me as a literary romance, which is so not the way it should be advertised. Side note, does it bother anybody else? Like, I love this cover, but does it bother anybody else, this trend of using like classic paintings and the vibe of the painting absolutely in no way, shape, or form matches the story or what the story is about? Like, everybody is using stuff like this on their cover, and it's mostly modern, like contemporary fiction stories. And it irks me a little bit because this gets me in the mood and mindset for something else. And then I open the book and it's like, Washington, D.C., 2015. Maybe it's just me. So another part of this story is the American girl's Arabic isn't great. There's a language barrier here. And there are times when the American girl is forced to convey very strong, complex, but important emotions that she's feeling to the boy with her very limited Arabic, and that forces Noor to find a way to explain very big things in just a few basic words, and it just, I have to find it. Okay, this might spoil something, so if that's gonna bother you, I will put a timestamp on the screen for where you can jump to avoid the spoiler, okay? There is an argument happening, and the American girl is very frustrated because she's having a really hard time communicating about this issue with her limited Arabic. So I'm going to read part of this chapter. How to say passive-aggressive in Arabic. Guilt trip, victim complex, how to say emotional blackmail. What is unforgivable in English, in Arabic has no name, I know. You are trying to make me feel bad, I say, like a small hiccuping girl with sand in her eyes. You are no longer safeness, I tell him. I miss myself. He hugs me, and I let him. You are no longer safeness. Like, I don't know why that just makes me so emotional, because what an amazing way to describe that. It's so simple, and it just nails it. So basically, I loved this book. It was really hard choosing between this and the two other 5-star reads I had. Three. Oh my god, I had 4 5-star reads. It was between this and Vampires of El Norte and Say Nothing. But this is just, I will always give the win to somebody who is able to weave together a lot of very tricky things in an effortless way. Also, my jaw dropped so many times reading this, I just can't not. It was permanently on the floor while reading this, pretty much. It's not going to be for everybody. There's a good chance you'll love it or hate it, but I hope that everybody can appreciate at least something about it, because it is really well done, and there's a lot of thought that went into it, and it's at least an interesting take on things that are so relevant and difficult to find. I think it's difficult to find a good voice on some of these topics, and I will listen to Noor Naga dissect any issue any day of the week. Pick it up, check it out. If it sounds interesting to you at all, go in with an open mind, because it is weird, and even after everything I've said, you're still gonna be surprised. Let me know if you have read this, or if you do read it, please come back, because I'm desperate to talk to somebody about this, and it's so good. That's the book of the month. I can't wait to see what happens next month. And with that, I'm off to read a Halloween graphic novel. See you in the next video.